suggest my my final sports history project is talking about two issues, specifically two questions about U.S. men's soccer. The first question is why the U.S. with a population of over 300 million in soccer being a focal point and a very big sport in the country, why we cannot produce any big wins on the international level, and also why, with the same amount of population, why we haven't really produced a prodigy, while other countries with much smaller populations produce prodigies and very talented players on a yearly basis.
Okay, for the first question, I think that culturally speaking, the United States doesn't have put as much importance as other countries on soccer, and that's just because we have other options when it comes to sports that countries elsewhere might not have, and also in terms of lifestyle and what you choose to pursue in life, we have different options and oftentimes more options, and so that's why it doesn't have necessarily as much of an importance, soccer, than in other countries. And the second question about why we haven't produced a star, I think that the reason is very similar, that because there's less importance on it, less people are interested or pursue soccer as rigorously as they have to become a star. And so a person who is talented and gifted when it comes to soccer might not have the opportunity to pursue and develop all those skills, or might not have the interest that people in other countries have to create a superstar and to develop into a really talented international soccer player.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much for your
Okay,
time.
Eric, what do you think about U.S. men's soccer, first of all?
I think it's good, but not at the level of the rest of the world.
So, you say it's not the level of the rest of the world. So, why do you think it's not there? We have a population of over 300 million, half of which are basically guys, and you can basically say that around 25% of them, or 20-25% will play soccer. That's a lot of people. And you look at nations like Brazil, even Dominican Republic, all of them, they have really, Croatia, very small countries that produce soccer prodigies every year that go to big clubs like Manchester United. Why can we not produce that when we have basically probably over 40 to 50 million boys playing soccer?
There's a lot more sports available to kids in the United States, so they have a lot more opportunity to play different sports. So when they don't focus on one sport, they don't turn out to be professional soccer players because they could go professional in any other sport they like, and they have more than one option.
What do you think about the MLS compared to other soccer leagues?
I think it's clearly not at the level of the English Premier League or any of the Spanish leagues, and I think it's kind of where the European players go to die, I guess.
Yeah, they go to retire, Thierry Henry.
Yeah.
And okay, so
that's a good ball he's found there to Guardiola. He plays it inside with a header. Howard, great for the distribution, brilliant. Landon Donovan, there are things on here for the USA. Can they do it here? Cross, and Dempsey is denied again, and Donovan has scored! Oh, can you believe this? Go, USA! Certainly through! Oh, it's incredible! You could not write a script like this! Here's the ball here. 20 in, and it comes out here to Landon Donovan, who strikes again. What a golden goal to the USA. If you're just joining us, there it is, the moment, deep into the match, to give the USA surely a place in the last 16. It is breathtakingly exciting.
I said before the game that they need to look at themselves and believe. Well, they continue to do that and address the issue. And it's an excellent goal, and the follow-up comes from Landon Donovan. Yeah, praise to the heavens. And now they've got to hold on.
So my U.S. Sports history project is about U.S. men's soccer. So what do you think about the fact, first of all, what do you think about our national team?
Well, it's quite a joke actually, and well, you've got European countries and South American countries really across the world producing soccer gods because that's what their inherent sport is. They love to play soccer around the world because it's easy. They got a soccer ball, they start juggling. That's all you need. They love the sport. It's really a love thing. They love it, so they produce the best players. Whereas for us, we play basketball, baseball.
Do you think it's like anything to do with like the youth squads, like how they train them really like hard in Europe, and it's like easier
Oh, I think
here?
the youth squads, yeah, this certainly has a big impact. I went over to Denmark with my soccer team, and just from the coaching staff there, you could tell that they get a much more vigorous work with their coaches.
About
than
men's
we do.
soccer in the United States.
Thank you.
So what I think, I'm very passionate about U.S. men's soccer, and that's why I chose as like a final project for this class. Like I watch all the World Cups, I watch all the international games. I'm like a big follower of the MLS, and so I just follow all the players. And like I think U.S. men's soccer is like developing. Like we've got a few good players like Clint Dempsey, obviously Landon Donovan, Tim Howard. We produce pretty much like pretty like solid class goalkeepers like Tim Howard and Brad Friedel, and internationally. And so we don't really have a problem with our goalkeepers, but what I really want to focus on is like our attack, like our strikers and everything. Like we've never really been able to produce a prodigy or anything. Like the closest thing we had to like a prodigy was Freddy Adu, and look how he turned out. Like he had all this hype at like age 14 that he was going to be like the next Ronaldinho, the next Messi, the next Cristiano Ronaldo, and now he's playing in like a league worse than the MLS in like Turkey or something. And so like we've had the hype about players, but they've never really turned out. Like our two best players are solid players. One of them plays in the MLS though, which is a league that's very shaky. And so, I mean, and then our best player plays for Fulham, which is actually a very good club. He finished 4th in the MVP race, which is actually really good for a U.S. player, but that's basically the first player that we ever had that's even come close to winning an award in the European League.
So why don't you think the U.S., it's the third largest country in the world, why do you think it can't produce stars like other smaller nations?
So what I think it is that we have a lot more other sports that other countries don't have that is more focused. Like, you look at, like, Brazil or Spain or anything, and you see street soccer everywhere. But you don't have that in the U.S. because kids are playing basketball, kids are playing football, kids are playing baseball on the street. It's much more common than soccer, and especially, like, if you look even at, like, MLS games, they're, like, the stands, it's never been packed. Like, the only games that sell out is, like, the finals of the MLS Cup, which, you know, to be honest, not many people care about. Like, I bet if I asked people around school, they'd be like, what's the MLS Cup? And,
What do you think about the U.S. men's soccer youth academy system?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the men's team, of course. I follow them pretty closely online, and I know that they've tried to develop youth soccer in this country at an elite level through this camp down in Florida and other places. It's good to bring the elite players together as young as possible and have them play really high competition, so that's important. But because we're such a big country, it does mean moving kids from across from California all the way to Florida, whatever, and it's hard to do that. So I think kind of at an emotional level, it's much harder to have a youth academy that's really successful when we're so big. I think regional centers that are kind of an elite development program are good as long as you can keep them within a couple hours of home. I think it's better. So I'm not a huge fan of the national size scale of that youth development.
Okay, and so if you look at the U.S. On an international level, our population is much bigger than most countries that are, say, in the World Cup or even at, like, playing international level country versus country soccer. And so countries like even the smallest, like Nigeria, with basically a tenth of our population size, are producing like prodigies every year. And basically one of our best players is Clint Dempsey, who's an average to like okay striker. So why do you think that with our population size, we haven't really been able to produce a prodigy or a very like clinical and a very talented like striker?
Well, I think soccer is slowly making inroads. Over the weekend there was this amazing final with Manchester City winning the Premiership title, but still it's not talked about. People aren't like talking in the hallways about it like you would expect in a real soccer crazy country. It's still a minority sport, and that just means that a very thin sliver of our huge population is completely into soccer. And until we get it up in the top 2 or 3, you're just not going to get that kind of a youth program that you get a lot of kids playing it. We don't have street soccer, we don't have like pickup soccer happening. It's not like basketball that's played in playgrounds across the country. when that happens, then just like in the NBA where we produce the elite players, we'll also produce elite soccer players. But there are some very good players. There are like 20 or 30 U.S. players that are playing overseas. And Clint Dempsey he finished 4th in the Premiership voting for the most valuable player or whatever the award is. So I think we're getting closer. We're getting better. We certainly are producing world-class goalkeepers more than a lot of other countries. So
True.
It'll happen.
Okay, thank you for your time.